All right, if I can call us to order, this is a regular meeting of the Planning and Transportation Commission, City of Palo Alto. The time is 6:08 p.m. on June 12th, 2019. May we have a roll call vote?
Vice Chair Alcheck?
Present.
Commissioner Dowling?
Present.
Chair Riggs?
Present.
Commissioner Ruparvar? Commissioner Suma?
Present.
Commissioner Templeton?
Present.
And Commissioner Waldfogel? Present. 6 present, 1 absent.
All right, and I do believe that Commissioner Ruparvar may be joining us a little later. Mr. Director, any oral communications that we have? Things not on the agenda?
Yeah, do we have any speakers for oral communications? Okay. No changes to the agenda.
And no changes to the agenda? Okay. Reports.
So just a couple of things to report out. Since our last meeting, the City Council had a study session discussion on a project at 788 San Antonio. This is a request to extend the housing incentive program that the Planning Commission had considered and Council later approved for portions of El Camino and downtown and Cal Ave area. This is a request from an applicant to take those provisions and apply them to the CS zone properties along San Antonio on the, what I think is ultimately the, I don't know if it's the south side of the street or the streets get a little funny down there, so I'm not sure if it's south or east, but anyways, so that went forward and we got some feedback and the applicant is moving forward with an application along those lines to extend that the housing incentive program. A couple other updates. The Planning Commission had considered the 1210 Newell Road. This was a variance application. The City Council had endorsed that Planning Commission recommendation on consent, so there's no further action on that. The Planning Commission also had reviewed a zone change from R1 to RMD for a property next to the College Terrace Library. That also went to the City Council since our last meeting, and that was also approved, consistent with the Planning Commission's recommendations. And then more recently, the City Council has authorized $10 million worth of affordable housing funding to be used for Palo Alto housing in support of the project on Wilton Court, which was another project that the Planning Commission has reviewed. Upcoming for the June 24th meeting is a review of an application for an Audi and Mercedes-Benz dealership at 1700 Embarcadero. The Planning Commission had previously considered an application. That one was ultimately withdrawn. A new owner and application was filed about a year ago. And so that's going forward on June 24th. That concludes the report.
Did you want to discuss the second item there?
Thank you. Yeah, this is just a communication, a report that was prepared by our Office of Transportation, providing information to the Planning Commission. It's not intended to be a discussion item. If the Commission felt that there was a need to discuss it, we would agendize that for a future discussion, but otherwise it's just a transmittal.
And I would suggest that I did have an opportunity from my fellow commissioners to speak with the Interim Transportation Director, and we are going to see some updates from the Transportation Division later on in the summer. Any comments from the commissioners about that update? Okay, seeing none, let's enter our study session. So we will have an opportunity for public comment, but I believe, Claire, you have a presentation to start us off.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Claire Hodgkins, and I'm the project planner on behalf of planning for this project. The project before you today is the Newell Road Bridge Replacement Project. So before I go over the brief summary of the project, I just want to identify the background of when this project started and some of the key milestones that we've hit to date. So it actually started in April 2011. Caltrans deemed the existing bridge functionally obsolete, meaning that it did not meet certain Caltrans standards. So the city worked with Caltrans and the Santa Clara Valley Water District to secure funding for replacement throughout 2011 and 2012. We had quite a few community outreach meetings to obtain community input and for early collaboration on potential alternatives that we should explore. And this occurred between 2012 and 2015. And in 2015, we released the notice of we determined that EIR should be prepared and released the notice of preparation and began scoping process for the environmental analysis. There were numerous technical reports that had to be prepared and reviewed and approved in coordination with Caltrans before we could move forward on preparing the environmental analysis. So once all the technical reports were finalized, we prepared the draft EIR and EA. And finally, we were able to release the draft EIR environmental assessment on May 31st of this year. Brief summary of kind of where the location we're looking at. So this is crossing San Francisco Creek between Edgewood Drive in Palo Alto and Woodland Avenue in East Palo Alto. So half of the bridge is in Palo Alto and half of the bridge is in East Palo Alto. So Public Works will provide some more detailed information about the purpose and need and objectives, as well as alternatives that were considered. But for the purposes of CEQA, we had to identify the proposed project and the environmentally superior alternative. So the city coordinated with East Palo Alto in identifying a locally preferred alternative as the proposed project. And alternative 2 in the analysis was selected. It's actually also identified as the environmentally superior alternative. So I'd like to just provide a brief overview of what we're moving forward as the proposed project. So that includes replacement of the existing 2-lane bridge, which is 22 feet wide, with a 2-lane bridge that is 42 feet wide along the same alignment. The new lanes would be wide enough to meet Caltrans standards for sharrows, which are shared bicycle vehicle lanes, and also includes sidewalks on each side of the bridge. And it raises the existing bridge to allow better flow capacity beneath the bridge. It also raises a portion of Woodland Avenue and Newell Road to match that new grade of the bridge and includes some retaining walls in a few locations to support that road. And this is just a brief visual of from Newell Road looking in Palo Alto, looking over the bridge over San Francisco Creek. And then this would be the simulation for the view from East Palo Alto. Just going back really quickly, I want to just note that right now the simulations don't show any landscaping other than grass in these areas. We do anticipate that landscaping is going to be proposed. We are just in the process of designing that landscaping, so we're expecting that trees would be installed in these areas. So just going over the environmental review process, I just want to identify our role in this project. So the city is the lead agency under CEQA for this project, and Caltrans is the lead agency for NEPA for this project. And I believe there's a representative here from Caltrans. Yes. And there is a representative here from Caltrans. So if there are any questions that come up about the analysis as they relate to NEPA, they are available to respond to any questions related to that. And I just want to also note that the city of East Palo Alto is a responsible agency. I believe we need a street work permit from East Palo Alto. I also just want to note the PTC's role with respect to this project. So your scope is not only limited to what's in Palo Alto's jurisdiction. We're looking at the project as a whole here, and so any comments you have or thoughts you have can relate to the project as a whole, including the portion in East Palo Alto and the portion in Palo Alto. And just in terms of schedule, we are here where the draft EIR is released. We'll be doing scoping meetings for the next couple months. And we anticipate starting construction, we anticipate releasing the final EIR in August of 2019. And then Public Works Engineering is going to go a little bit more into the other next steps that will follow that. So tonight we're requesting that you provide comments on the draft EIR, EA, and recommend a preferred alternative to council. We have staff and consultants here that are prepared to answer questions about the analysis, should you have any. And in addition, as noted previously, to the extent that the comments relate to NEPA, Caltrans is here to answer questions as a lead agency for NEPA. And with that, I'll turn it back to you. And we do have a representative here from Public Works Engineering that's prepared to provide a brief summary of the project as well.
Any questions from the commissioner? All right, seeing none, let's move to the hearing portion, and then we'll come back to the commission. If that's okay. Do you have something else to add?
So we have a little bit more detail about the project itself, if you're interested in hearing that now?
Sure.
Sure, okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Jeremias. I'm with Public Works Engineering. I'm here to present to you the Newell Road Bridge project. I wanted to provide you with the background regarding the environmental document. How this project was developed. The existing bridge was built in 1911, and as Claire indicated, the bridge was classified as functionally obsolete by Caltrans. It does not accommodate two-way vehicle traffic or access for pedestrians and cyclists. In addition, the distance the driver can see oncoming traffic is obscured by the trees and the vertical road profile on the approach. Another distinct component to this project is the creek conveyance. The current bridge abutments are located within the creek channel and constrain the flows of the creek. As a result, the bridge has a capacity to convey only 6,600 cubic feet per second, and this is less than the actual capacity of the creek. The reduced flows is a concern from a broader flood protection perspective, and there's for the benefit of all present, I'm going to elaborate a little bit in detail as far as what that entails. So you'll see on the map in front of you, San Francisco Creek beginning on the left bottom half of the page and draining towards the right northern components. El Camino Real, the bridge over crossing, is shown on the bottom right, bottom left, and Middlefield, Pope Chaucer, and then University and Newell Road, West Bayshore. In 1998, there was a significant storm event that flooded Palo Alto. The rain runoff exceeded the capacity of the creek. As a result, several public agencies came together to develop a strategy to implement projects that could reduce flooding risks. From a hydraulic engineering perspective, we have to design and improve downstream first before we make improvements upstream. Several projects have been completed with initiation of the San Francisco Creek Pump Station that was done in 2007. Most recently, the downstream Highway 101 project was completed in 2018. With these projects in place, we are now in a place to actually make the improvements upstream. The advancing of this project will also allow another upstream project to proceed. It will replace Pope Chaucer as well as widening specific areas along the creek to allow the conveyance ultimately of 7,500 cubic feet. Based on the project need, and we also described and identified the number of objectives. The first was to provide a bridge that maintains connectivity for all modes of access while not diverting vehicle to adjacent streets or creating an increase in the number of vehicles that use Newell Road and increase in the average vehicle speeds. Other project objectives were included. Which improve the pedestrian and bicycle access across San Francisco Creek, improve the safety for all modes of transportation, upgrading the channel beneath the bridge to allow the conveyance of a 50-year storm event. Once we had identified the project objectives, we set about to identify how we could best meet that. Since then, we've had several number of community meetings. Some of the earlier meetings were to discuss the project, and the subsequent were to develop a process to help us narrow down the alternatives to advance. By the fall of 2014, we had narrowed down to 8 alternatives. We incorporated these alternatives through a screening criteria. The screening criteria is shown above on the table with concerns identifying. First was the concerns is that project meet the 100-year storm event. It also does not create an impact to the level of service, and the project does not create an impact to the traffic infusion of residential environment, in other words, tire. What that means is that analysis, the impact would not increase, would not deteriorate the safety or the comfort of the residents that use the streets for either walking, playing, or simply exiting their driveways. 3 of the alternatives not shown in bold, you will see the alternatives, the remove the existing bridge, bicycle pedestrian bridge, or bicycle pedestrian bridge with emergency, were not advanced. We only considered the 4 alternatives shown highlighted in this area. The backwards. Yes. So the alternatives that we considered for the EIR was the no-build alternative. This alternative is considered in all the EIRs. Alternative number 1 is the bridge with a bidirectional 1 lane. This bridge would be controlled with traffic signals. Alternative number 2 is a 2-lane bridge with bicycle and pedestrian access, sidewalks as clear as shown. And this would be located in the current alignment. Alternative number 3 is a 2-lane bridge, similar with access and partial realignment. Newell Road travelway would be partially aligned between East Palo Alto and Palo Alto. Alternative number 4 is a full realignment of Newell Road. Similar to the visual simulation shared with you earlier, here's a visual simulation for alternative 1. Please note the location of the traffic signals that were proposed. One of them would be designated for the driveway, that approach that leads out of Newell into Newell Road in Palo Alto side. Alternative number 2, this is the one that we've seen already. 2-lane bridge with stop controlled. Alternative number 3 shows the partial realignment. And again, similar to what was said earlier, we will be placing trees along the planter strips in this area. That's will be developed at a later date once we move forward with the project. Alternative number 4, it shows the full realignment of Newell Road. No, it's this one. There we go. Oh, scroll. No, never mind. So current schedule. So one of the things I wanted to identify, and apologize it's not shown on this, meant to include, is that there's 3 additional community meetings that are occurring. Tonight's the first. There will be another one on Tuesday next week, and Wednesday next week, Public Works Transportation in East Palo Alto, as well as a following one in July for the ARB. The process that we follow from here would be is once the circulation and the EIR comments are received, we can proceed with the NEPA process as well. There's federal regulations that they need to comply in order to release the FONSI and then also approve the NEPA, the EA. Then we will continue with permitting for regulatory agencies. We schedule currently, best case, around fall or winter 2019. Once that occurs, we can also proceed concurrently with preparation of the construction documents and apply for the construction funding. Beginning construction, assuming we can begin construction based on permits, based on the bids and funds, it's as early as next year, summer. And there's several items that we have to be mindful of, and those are the constraints. We're limited to work in the creek between June 15 and October 15, upcoming rainy seasons, and coordination with the upstream project. This concludes my presentation of the project, if you have any questions.
Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Wolfvogel.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. What is the designed flow rate for this new bridge? I mean,
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
what is the flow rate that this bridge is designed to? It's designed to 7,500 cubic feet per second?
Yes. The
Okay.
flow rate is 7,500 cubic feet per second. And that
Yeah.
is the same as what's being done for the upstream project.
Yeah, and I think your table said 100-year, and then your text said 50-year and 70-year.
Right. So I can clarify that. So originally, when this project began, 2012, the 100-year storm event was higher. We were expecting a 9,200 CFS. Since then, for the EIR analysis, we proposed at 7,500 CFS, which is what the actual creek can convey. The creek itself cannot convey the capacity that we had originally assumed, 9,200. Subsequent studies also, from a hydraulic perspective, shows that we're not actually 9,200, it's closer to 8,150. So what we had designed when we proposed the EIR was a design for the 50-year storm event, as in fact, we're actually meeting a 70-year storm.
Commissioner Suma.
I just have a quick question about the visibility at the intersection in the preferred alternative, because currently going into East Palo Alto on Newell on the bridge and going, I guess it's mostly northbound on Woodland, the visibility is very poor, and I think it's largely due to vegetation. Will that be improved?
Yes, it would be improved with this project. So the project does 2 things. It resolves the current issues of line of sight, but because it's raising the bridge even more, it would be more offset. So that's why Woodland Avenue and portions of Newell Avenue would need to be raised slightly. It would fix the current issue that we have and also accommodate for the fact that it's getting a little bit higher.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Wolfvogel, do you have another question?
No.
Okay. I have a question. Do we have any estimation on bike ped volume to understand if the Class 3 bikeway is appropriate?
I think we'd have to look into that. I'm not sure if it
Yeah,
was
so
based on anything.
did we look into any sub-alternatives that actually looked at a Class 1 bikeway or a Class 2 bikeway across any of the alternative, I mean, so these are all alternatives that could have sub-alternatives. So that's,
Right. So I'll start with the response, and then either Public Works or maybe our engineer can add to it if I miss anything. But I know that we did look into different alternatives. In early analysis, we even looked at potential options that were only bike and pedestrian access. Those ended up being screened out because they didn't meet a lot of our other project objectives. We did also talk about the idea of doing a full bike lane. The issue with this was that everything has to be designed to meet Caltrans standards. It's AASHTO standards, but basically Caltrans standards. Meanwhile, we were also getting a lot of comments from the public to try and reduce the width of the bridge as much as possible. So to accommodate that, we felt that based on these, like the length and span of the bridge, that Sharrows would be the best option to provide the narrowest bridge possible to address the public comments related to the width of the bridge and trying to reduce our overall impact on the environment, specifically like the creek bank, while also still accommodating full bicycle access. So we would have to ask for an exception from Caltrans standards if we were to.
I know. Okay. So did we run a MMLOS model on this? Do we know? No? I saw a head shake. Do we run a multimodal level service model on this?
I'll ask our engineer. I don't know if we did or not. I don't think we have. I don't think we have. Thank you.
I'm hearing no.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open it up for public comment. I have two speaker cards. If anyone else in the public would like to speak to this item, if you could please hand me a card, that'd be great. So first off, I have Robert Neff. Did I get your last name right?
Yes, Neff. I'm Robert Neff. I'm a resident. I've been on the Palo Alto Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission since around 2010. I find the draft EIR for the Newell Bridge grossly inadequate because it does not address the bicycling suitability and comfort level for cyclists traveling from Newell Road in Palo Alto to Clark and Newell Road in East Palo Alto. It shows that the bridge and the intersection may indeed have Sharrows, but it does not analyze the impact of traffic congestion and intersection design. This bridge will serve bicyclists and pedestrians connecting from Palo Alto to East Palo Alto for the next 100 years and will be the best, most direct, and most comfortable connections. So it is essential to consider bicycle circulation in more detail. An excellent bike route should have low traffic stress. The traffic stress analysis method has been developed relatively recently after even the creation of our 2012 bike pedestrian plan, but was used in developing goals for the local bike network improvements since about 2015. One example of a low-stress route is the Bryant Bike Boulevard, where bicycles and autos share the lane, but the speed and volume of automobile traffic is very low. On busier streets, low traffic stress can be achieved by implementing bicycle lanes, such as on Park Boulevard, from California to Lathan Avenue. In the case of the complete connection, with lower traffic stress along the entire route, a larger percentage of potential cyclists will consider using a route. In the case of the complete connection from Clark Avenue in East Palo Alto across 101 on the brand new bike pedestrian bridge and across the creek on this new bridge at Newell Road, all segments can be considered for traffic stress, and the EIR should make that analysis with regard to the design alternatives. The new bridge, of course, is low traffic stress. It's only bicycles and pedestrians, so it's the best case. Newell Road in East Palo Alto has shared lanes, no center line, 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and average daily volumes of about 1,800, which is within the guidelines of the lowest traffic stress streets. On the Palo Alto side, Newell Road has 25-mile-an-hour speed limits, a center line, much higher traffic volumes, but it also has bike lanes. So depending on the width of the bike lanes, this could also be a lowest traffic stress or maybe a modest traffic stress suitable for most adult bicyclists. This kind of analysis for traffic stress is necessary for evaluating the bridge, and additional evaluation must be made for the mixed traffic flow through the proposed offset intersection at Newell and Woodland, especially considering the distinct flows of bicycle and automobile traffic. Will the preferred alternative create a high-stress bridge crossing and a high-stress intersection? I'm sure that adding bicycle lanes to the bridge and removing the offset from the intersection will reduce bicycle-automobile conflicts and reduce the level of traffic stress. Note that adding Sharrow markings to the road, the only design feature proposed for bicyclists in the bridge plans, does not change the level of traffic stress and makes no significant difference. In fact, the wider lanes of the new bridge will probably tend to increase traffic speed and then increase the level of traffic stress versus the current design. So this kind of analysis is completely missing from the EIR, and I hope you will include this. Thank you.
Sorry, a little rusty at this. Xenia Hammer.
Was there a light that was supposed to go on? I didn't see any lights.
It goes on when you have 1 minute left, it should turn yellow, but, light bulb.
Ms. Hammer.
Hello, I'm Xenia Hammer. I live on Sharon Court in Palo Alto, close to the intersection of Channing and Newell. First of all, the timing of this project is urgent. As Michelle mentioned, it was started in 2011, 7 years. This project is on a critical path for other flood control projects in Palo Alto. A Pope Chaucer Street bridge, which is a major flood hazard, cannot be replaced until Newell is replaced. So I urge you to proceed as quickly as possible to approve this project and move forward with construction. Second of all, the project itself, the proposed alternative, represents a reasonable, good compromise given all the community input that was given 5 years ago. People wanted a narrower bridge. That's why, the bicycle lanes could not be accommodated fully. It presents a reasonable compromise with multiple constituencies involved, and again, it needs to move forward as quickly as possible. Mr. Waldvogel, you asked a question about the flow capacity of the creek at Newell. What is really critical to consider is this. The capacity of Middlefield Bridge, which is upstream from Newell, is 7,500 cubic feet per second. And so whatever passes under Middlefield, the Newell Road Bridge will be able to accommodate, which is not the case today. So, and we're not changing the Middlefield Bridge, so that is a key consideration here. Thank you so much, and again, I urge you to move as quickly as possible with this urgent project. It would be completely unacceptable if Newell Road Bridge were to delay the rest of the flood control work on San Francisco Creek. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Reinfleisch. Did I get your name right? Is that Fleisch? Apologies.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm Tom Reinfleisch. I live in Palo Alto Crescent Park, or just near Eleanor Pardee Park. And in 1998, our house was flooded. And I'd like to reiterate what Xenia said. There was $28 million in damage done in 1998. It came largely because the Pope Chaucer Bridge does not have the capacity to pass the water that flows under Middlefield. It's the 70-year flood, but it's the largest flood of record in the creek. And so it is a very reasonable goal to try to accommodate that 1998 flow. I My main concern about the Newell Road Bridge is that it be raised to provide the natural capacity of the creek. I live away from that intersection, but it seems to me that the option 2, alternative 2, as a locally preferred alternative, is a totally reasonable alternative. It provides access for first responders. It provides a compromise between traffic and bicycles, pedestrians, and I believe it offers the opportunity to control traffic in various ways with various kinds of interventions over time if that becomes necessary. It is really critical that you approve and move forward with this replacement. We are 21 years out from the 1998 flood. I run the Neighborhood Association website or email list for Crescent Park, and every winter there is an incredible fear of, is the next rainstorm going to be one that overflows the creek? And it's because of Pope Chaucer. We cannot replace Pope Chaucer until the Newell Road Bridge is fixed. So please do move forward as quickly as possible. Thank you.
All right, that will conclude our hearing, and so we'll bring it back to the commission. Maybe, I don't see any lights, but if there's any comments, I'll entertain them now. Anybody? Commissioner Woelfel? Yeah.
Turn the microphone on. Thanks to staff, to Michelle and Claire for bringing this forward tonight. This is a project that's taken a long time to germinate, 21 years since the flood. And it's time to move forward, so we need to move this forward. When I got the DIR a couple of weeks ago, I was pretty happy about where we are. There were just a couple areas that I was concerned about, and maybe you can comment on them. The biggest issues that I saw were just about construction impacts. I mean, this is heavy construction in the middle of, between residential neighborhoods on both sides of the creek, and I saw references in the DIR to things like Caltrans, nighttime construction noise standards, to pile driving for footings, et cetera. And I just wonder if you could comment on any of that, on what mitigations are in place, what you anticipate construction hours to be. I mean, just some of these nuts and bolts practical questions.
Absolutely. So in looking through the draft DIR, I do want to clarify that I think there was perhaps a little bit of unclarity about the nighttime construction because we were referencing some of Caltrans standards, which in some cases allow for nighttime construction. But we would always use the most restrictive, which in this case would be Palo Alto standards. So we are not expecting nighttime construction on this project. In terms of the construction noise levels, we are anticipating that there was a significant impact without mitigation. However, we've identified mitigation measures to reduce the construction noise levels. The noisiest equipment that was identified was pile driving. Pile driving was anticipated to have, I think it was 95 or 96 dBA. Mitigation measures were identified. I think they are outlined in mitigation measure NOI 3 to reduce noise levels to a less than significant level. The noise barriers and some other mitigation that was intended to reduce noise levels by 25 dBA. So the anticipated noise level would be around 70 dBA for construction noise. And is there anything else I can maybe add to that, or?
No, I think that that's great, and I think that just, I'm not quite sure where it fits in the process, but just reading the DIR, I was a little scared of some of these impacts. I mean, I don't want to do anything that delays the project, but, you know, to the extent that we can clarify what our stance is on mitigation, I think that's great, and I think that's, I just wanted to get some of that on the record.
I think we can certainly look through the EIR, and in the final EIR, we can provide a little bit better clarity about what our expectations are in terms of maximum noise levels and nighttime construction or lack thereof.
Great, I think that's helpful. I mean, I think that you actually identify mitigations that the private sector should copy, you know, in a whole bunch of areas, and, you know, we can discuss that separately, but I think you've set a pretty good model for it, and wanted to thank you for that. Then just one other comment. It's way outside my purview, Michelle, but design build is a good tool. I mean, you have really tight schedules here, and you know, looking at your sequencing on you know, when you'll generate CDs versus when you're going to bid. I wish you the very best of luck on keeping this thing moving forward.
Thank you. I think that's something that we can look into as we proceed with the project and talking with our consultants to see whether or not, and with Caltrans as well for funding, we'll consider it.
Yeah, way outside my purview, but I just wanted to mention it.
Oh, we can do that if you, yeah, sure. Commissioner Suma.
Okay, so thank you to everyone for the staff. I thought it was a really good report, very informative and easy to read, and also to the members of the public who came out tonight. Sorry, my phone. In contemplating the alternatives, I do think that the preferred alternative is a good compromise, especially considering the complexities of having to deal with multiple cities and different agencies. And I think it's important to get this going and not delay it as we get crazier and crazier weather. So my concerns were construction, which we just addressed, impacts for nearby neighbors in both cities, and also the concern earlier about that one side of the intersection that currently has such bad visibility, and that was also addressed. So I'd like to listen to the rest of my colleagues, and that's it for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Templeton, do you mind if I just kind of take chair's prerogative here real fast, and because I wasn't intending to structure things that way, and I'm just going to read that this is going to be piles full of honey on this project, and I want to temper it with some comments because I think that my questions were pointed earlier and they didn't have an answer. And so I just want to bring up I want to highlight a couple of things for my fellow commissioners that I think should give them pause about this as a preferred alternative, is that we don't know anything about bicycle levels. We don't know anything about bicycle and pedestrian level of service here based on what I've been told by staff. And we don't know how this meets bicycle and pedestrian level of service. And so my question is this the, I think I would challenge you all to think about, is this the right alternative given goal number, goal TR6, goal T119? Does it prop up climate goals at the same time? And I question whether or not two-way traffic does that in this case. And I think that pitting LOS against multimodal benefits in your little ratings chart is an easy pass. I don't think this little table holds up to any level of scrutiny. So I would pause to think about whether or not this is the correct alternative. I think that Mr. Neff hit the nail on the head. This is a 50-year investment, and if we really are thinking about transportation in the city a little differently in 30, 40 years, a bidirectional one-lane flow could be completely appropriate in this location. It actually may be preferred in terms of directionality as we think about future traffic. So,
Explain how this is inconsistent with that?
how this is inconsistent with that.
This option, you said bidirectional.
So, well, so the preferred option here is bidirectional two-lane traffic as opposed to bidirectional one lane of traffic, which is option number 1. I believe that the preferred alternative being put forward is option number 2, if I'm not mistaken, which are, I mean, to be honest, from a structural standpoint, it's pretty irrelevant. From a traffic standpoint, and I think there are design solutions that weren't considered in this case. So I mean, if we can suspend a pedestrian path off of the Bay Bridge, why couldn't we consider that from a structural standpoint here? I mean, I think that so I just want to, before we kind of bless this project, I think it's important to step back a little bit and ask some bigger questions, particularly as we're seeing in the life cycle of this bridge, we're going to see a different type of travel yielding behavior for vehicles. We're going to see different vehicular patterns. We're going to see different expectations in terms of a level of service. So I think it's important to condition that given the life cycle of this structure. I'll stop there.
I don't understand this because isn't that just a signalization option you could do on the same?
One lane.
So, I'm sorry, if we can, Commissioner Walfogel.
So this is, that is,
We don't have your question on the record.
so I believe the question was, is this just a signalization option? Yes, it likely is paint and signaling, but the likelihood that Public Works would go out and change the signals and restripe and redo the curves after this is installed is de minimis.
So I just want to, for clarity, are you indicating that
I need a
alternative?
response. I don't know that I need a response on that.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand if what you are proposing is what was analyzed under alternative 1.
I don't know what was analyzed on October 1, because you told me you didn't have any bike ped volume and you couldn't rationalize why a Class 3 was appropriate in this location.
Well, what we analyzed in alternative number 1 was a bidirectional bridge with one-lane traffic.
Yeah, but you only analyze vehicular level of service.
Okay.
So I just want the commission to think about that. Commissioner Templeton.
Hi, thank you all for your work on this. I was also interested in the decision to eliminate the bike and pedestrian only bridge, and it sounded like because we have to replace the whole bridge to get the flow, that we needed to be able to include vehicles. Was that my understanding, or can you correct that?
Sorry for the confusion. The reason that those options were eliminated is because they created a level of service increase. Level services were increased in the PM over at University and East Crescent. So they had an impact to the level of service at 2 intersections. In addition to that, they also had an increase into the impact to the tire, the traffic confusion in a residential environment, eliminating the vehicular access through Newell would create an impact, would create an increase on adjacent streets, and thus impacting those in a negative connotation.
Thank you for clarifying that. And also to the speaker's point about the changes since the bridge over 101 has opened, do we know anything about if our traffic has changed, or would that be included in the study that Chair Riggs is proposing?
Are you asking about vehicular traffic or
all the traffic? I mean, do we know if the use of that bridge has changed? The public speaker suggested that maybe more bike traffic would be going there now because of the new bridge access across 101.
All right. I don't think we have updated data on that.
It'd be interesting to find out. I can imagine that there might be more bike traffic there as well. But just to be crystal clear, and I want to ask this again, the bridge, if it's functionally obsolete no matter how it's used, the current bridge, right?
That's correct.
Because of the flow issues and the other uses.
It's functionally obsolete because it does not provide adequate access for multimodal access. So
Okay.
it does not provide a designated two-directional lanes or designated sidewalk for pedestrians.
Okay. But we don't want to leave it there and change how it's used because it doesn't allow enough water through.
That's correct.
Okay, great. And then last thing, I really appreciated your chart here about the timeframe. You talk about it would start in spring of 2020. When do you think how long of a commitment, how big of a project is this?
We believe the project would take about 1.5 years to complete.
A year and a half to complete. And at any point during that 1.5 years, would it be available for like bike and pedestrian use before vehicle use, or it would be completely shut down for that entire time?
We would look at, depending on the scope of the work and the schedule, it is in an area that maybe we can open portions of Newell on East Palo Alto side and Woodland, but I don't think we could open portions of the bridge. I don't know. We'd have to look at the schedule, but based on the time of the season of the year as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Olczyk.
Okay, thank you both for your presentations and for the work you've done on the report. Also, I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate the feedback from the members in the community, particularly with respect to the sort of focus on alternative modes, and as well as the neighbors that are here, because this has been an exceptionally long process, and the stamina that it has taken is noteworthy. I also want to suggest that I thought that the packet page 28, this has been, I think, just feedback quickly for staff. This is, I think, one of the more effective ways that we've been able to hear comments from the community, sort of aggregated in a very sort of efficient way. So I found the comments that began on packet page 28 to just be organized well, and I'm really happy that was possible. So thank you. I'm really familiar with this project. I vividly remember when Joe Teresi, who was the senior engineer tasked with shepherding this project in 2011, introduced us to it and walked us through almost these exact 4 options. I don't think Joe Teresi works here anymore. I think he retired, but he was a very nice man. 7 years later, we are again reviewing what are essentially the same options, and I feel the same way I did back then when I sat on this commission. I would recommend that council determine that this bridge be rebuilt and done so in a way to meet the current multimodal standards. While I continue to agree that realignment is unnecessary, I strongly agree, and this, it's as if we spoke beforehand, which we did not. I strongly believe that that this should be traffic signal controlled. I also think that the provided 2-foot wide sidewalks are woefully inadequate. It says in the packet, I'll just pull you to it, but maybe this is a typo.
They'd be 5 feet wide. Yeah.
Page 78 says build alternative 2. Last sentence of the first real paragraph of build alternative 2 on packet page 78 says 2-foot wide sidewalks would also be provided. Is that a typo?
I think that must have been an error. They're supposed to be 5 foot wide. Apologize for that.
Okay, well, that's good. So let's not focus on the sidewalk then.
Okay.
I'll just continue with my comment about the signaling. The feedback clearly demonstrates that the bridge's current substandard width has had a real impact on speed. Everyone in the community that has encountered this bridge will tell you that they slowed down, because to not slow down would likely cause an accident. So its narrowness is in fact the speed bump.
It's called a chicane.
And we don't just need to rely on feedback here, because I know I frequently say that I don't love anecdotal evidence, but we constantly review projects that are traffic mitigating by creating sort of narrower pathways, right? We introduced large planters on Hamilton and some of the roads off of Middlefield from downtown in an effort to sort of create a more narrower pass through, and that causes drivers to somehow slow down subconsciously. So I think it's safe to agree with a lot of the feedback you received that took the position that widening the bridge will have the exact opposite effect, which is to say that it will likely encourage faster passage over the bridge. At the intersection of Newell and Channing, this is several blocks away, there's a traffic signal which has clearly been designed to moderate the speed of traffic, which is critical, right? Because this is an intersection where there's a safe route to school PAP. It's the gateway to Eleanor Party Park. You're minutes from Lucy Stern. So it seems to me that if you had those same concerns at this bridge location, that installing a traffic signal and essentially bringing traffic to a stop right before it crosses that bridge in a very controlled way would really be the right decision. I think if Palo Alto finally addresses this terribly substandard bridge, that the council should approve the installation of a traffic signal. And I don't share the view that this should be a one-lane bridge. I think that we can accommodate bidirectional traffic. One of my concerns about, I think one of the things that we have to appreciate here is that we have a very complicated site. And one thing that happens at this particular site is that there are times of day when the traffic really is predominantly in one direction. And so having traffic that can only travel in one direction by a signal would potentially really disrupt the pattern. And that's one of my concerns. At 5 o'clock every day, for example, there's a line of cars that are trying to cross that bridge for an hour, and to some extent the stop sign doesn't help, but if there was a traffic signal in both directions and traffic could pass in both directions, I think that would be preferred alternative than just one way. I think one of the things we really need to do, though, is we need to ensure the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists. And if the conclusion is that to accomplish all of these goals, we have to use sharrows, if that really is sort of the best tactic, then I would support that, and I would encourage council to support that, especially if now we have 5-foot wide sidewalks. That seems a lot more adequate. I was a little concerned about the 2-foot typo. But there are a lot of children who ride bikes over this bridge. There are a lot of adults who ride bikes over this. There are a ton of pedestrians that cross this bridge. And if there's, individuals in the community who oppose the traffic light because I'm guessing it's a bit too cumbersome, that's kind of the point. We need to slow down at this bridge. It's a neighborhood. And so I would encourage the decision makers to visit that space at multiple times in day. And then lastly, I'll mention this just because it came up a couple times with respect to construction, and I say this with the utmost respect for the men and women in the trade industry who do the quality work that we often see in a professional, timely manner. I would encourage the city not to select the same construction management company which is currently taking their sweet time at the fire station at the other end of Newell. And I'm trying to put things in perspective here. We've lost some credibility, when we start to talk about a project that has this level of priority and it's taken 7 years and we're basically at the same presentation that I saw in the end of 2012. It's a problem. I sort of winced when you said that the project would be finished and you gave the specific date, because in my mind, there's no credibility in that statement. I'll just give you sort of a guideline to why I feel that way. Construction began on the fire station at the other end of this same road in January of 2018. It was supposed to finish in March of 2019. It's now almost July of 2019. Drive by the fire station, there's no end in sight. Doesn't even look close. And it's basically a tall garage. It's so significantly less complicated than what this bridge will be. So I think we need to learn from those mistakes. I think we need to start earning some credibility back. We need to be really careful about what expectations we set, because the community is paying attention and they're frustrated, and millions of dollars were lost as a result of flood control. And so I think we really need to work on that. And that's it.
Before we move on, I want to clarify. I'm trying to make sense of one of the things you're suggesting. Are you suggesting a variance on the locally preferred alternative, because the locally preferred alternative has no signalization?
Yeah, I think that two-way traffic with the 5-foot wide sidewalks and sharrows would work. I think that's a very viable option. I think that the failure to signalize that intersection is ignoring the feedback and the sort of takeaways that we've often been presented with, which is that traffic is likely to speed up significantly and make that path a lot more dangerous.
Okay, I just want to get clear. I mean, I think
So I wouldn't
we might want to.
I wouldn't recommend build 2 without signalization.
Okay, so it's not, that's not a consideration in the pack we have, in the IR we have before us. I just want to highlight that.
Yeah, no,
And I actually think we might want engineering staff to respond to that, because the signal, the traffic volume may not warrant a signal. So there's just specific code
Yeah, no,
guidelines
I
about
just-
what
I just wanna
warrants signalization. So we might want staff to respond to that suggestion with the volume that would warrant a signal. And so I'm just suggesting
Yeah.
that might be a consideration, because it might be illegal for them to suggest
Yeah, here's what I'm trying to say.
a signal.
Here's what I'm trying to say. There are tools that, they're like various, I've seen signals that operate almost like stoplights. They're essentially red all the time, and you drive up to them, they turn green, and then the second you cross, they're red again. I'm not as familiar as you with like the various tools there are, but what I can tell you is that this is virtually a blind intersection. There are a ton of pedestrians that cross it. Widening it feels like you're going to make a freeway on this neighborhood street. And there's an intersection at Channing and Newell that I suspect gets virtually the same amount of traffic,
Yeah.
and that's signaled.
So maybe, can we just frame that as, maybe staff, if you could, maybe after we're done here, assume, I think that the sentiment there is traffic calming, needs to be, is that
Yeah,
what you're
I mean,
saying?
arguably a stop sign is traffic calming. The problem is that stop signs are often rolled through. And in a blind intersection, that can be really dangerous. You're coming, they're talking about potentially increasing height or maintaining the height. The height is significantly higher than the roadway. So when you come off of that bridge and you come down, there's this, and some of the commenters mentioned it in their feedback, you sort of approach at an angle. When you get to the top and you come down, you suddenly see that there might be somebody coming across. And so, and the traffic on your left, right, when you're coming from Palo Alto to East Palo Alto, is so far set back from that stop sign that you don't know if he's left his stop sign as you come over. So all I'm suggesting is that some coordinated effort of signaling would maybe go a long way to
If we
addressing
could,
the concerns.
maybe I should suggest that I think that they hear the traffic calming, and there may be other mitigations. So we don't have to be engineers up here. So there may be other mitigations that get at your concerns, aside from a traffic light, with the locally preferred alternative. So I don't want you to, my suggestion maybe just, I want to be clear that this, what's under consideration tonight is not what you're describing, or what's being recommended by staff is not what you're describing.
Look, the call to action wasn't pick one of the four. The call to action was provide feedback that they can use as they continue to work on this draft EIR. And what I would suggest to you is that the majority of comments that we received from the community that suggested that widening was potentially not favorable bordered on the idea that the wider it gets, the likelihood of the traffic speed rising would happen.
So
I'm trying
maybe
to be responsive to that.
I would, just let me clarify, I would like to get to a recommendation to council tonight within the next 30 minutes. So Commissioner Rubavar, do you have anything else?
Is this a motion? Are you looking for a motion tonight?
We are looking for a recommendation on the preferred alternative.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. We'll certainly take it. I mean, this is a document that's open for public review, and we want to hear all comments that people have on the document. So we'll take that comment about the signal and the traffic calming, and we'll analyze that or respond to it. But yeah, we are looking for the commission's sort of feedback or direction, and a vote would be helpful on the scenario that we're looking to advance, and I think it was alternative 2 that we're promoting.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's incompatible to suggest that it wouldn't be unacceptable, this may not carry, but to suggest that build alternative 2 is acceptable to the commission. However, there are concerns about whether signalization would improve that build alternative. That's sort of what I'm saying. And while that maybe not on the table, it's not such a stretch. That's all I'm saying.
If we could hear from Commissioner Rufar. If you have anything, don't feel free if you're a fish out of water.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Just 2 quick comments. The signalization to me seems a bit cumbersome. Is it going to still be a blind intersection after you remove the vegetation? Didn't you speak about removing the vegetation to help the visibility? How blind is it going to be after?
It should not be a blind intersection. We are removing the vegetation, and to your question earlier, is we will be raising not only the bridge by about 1.5 feet, but we're also raising Woodland intersection right now at Newell. Both of them will be raised approximately right close to the bridge, about 4 feet. So that would create the traffic movement. We would be able to see oncoming traffic, providing also eliminating the concrete flood walls would also allow some visibility through the bridge itself. So that gives us, I don't foresee that should be an issue or concern.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Excellent. Commissioner Long.
Yes, a few. First of all, we're getting this pretty early in the EIR process, and I know somebody has to get it early, but we're not benefiting from more than 3 very helpful public speakers. So I wish it was a little bit later in the process. Is it usually take 9 years to go from functional obsolete to this stage? Is that typical?
No, so it has, what happened is Caltrans does routine inspections on this bridge.
Yeah.
And we've had inspections on the bridge done, I think, as early as 2010. As a result of all the work that's necessary to improve and prevent some of the flooding that occurs on San Mosquito Creek, we had to make improvements downstream first. So we had to get the funds to make the improvements on the levee and also to build the San Mosquito Creek pump station.
Okay, great. Which is how we also got a new golf course with that upstream work on floods. The other thing I want to understand, and I think I do, but it's so crucial, I want to make sure I do, and that is that you're saying that the traffic during the proposed project is going to actually require City Council to make findings of overriding considerations. So 2 questions. One is, do we not have to do that as well?
I'll let Sandy kind of add to this, but no, I don't believe you don't need to.
Okay. And then the second one, Claire, do I understand this right? When I get over to pages in the supplemental, revised final supplemental traffic evaluation report, is the bottom line that we're going to have this, E and F during construction, but after construction it's going to go back to better, I'll say, but not perfect? Because when I try to read pages 25 and 31, it looks like University Avenue in Woodland and University Avenue in Crescent are getting much worse when you get out to 2040.
I'm not seeing page 25, hold on. Which, of the packet, page 25?
No, I'm in the supplement on traffic. No, this is the traffic about, right?
He's referencing the item number 2, which is, sorry, Commissioner Long, those are separate.
He's referencing. Do you know what page of the packet you're on? Yeah, but which page of the packet are you referencing?
My question, we can forget that. My question is the only concern that we have for traffic around the construction, because it's going to get bad around construction.
Yes.
And that's why we need this. And then after that, we're good to go. Is that basically what you're saying?
Essentially, yeah. The traffic under Alternative 2 really would not change under operations. However, during construction, it would be a significant and unavoidable impact. I just want to note too, there have been a couple people who have raised some ideas of either of doing like only pedestrian bicycle bridge. If there is no vehicular traffic across, those significant and unavoidable impacts would be, permanent. impacts.
Right. Okay, so the E and F goes away after construction.
And I do want to note, under alternative 1, I think was the only alternative that was analyzed, which was the alternative that Commissioner Riggs spoke to, or Chair Riggs spoke to. That was actually the only alternative that was analyzed that it didn't result in significant impacts because the intersections that were affected were operating at a pretty good level, but it was definitely a notable impact on on some of the intersections under alternative 1 with the if there was 1 lane of traffic and bidirectional, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I'm sorry, did your question, can I speak?
Yeah.
Yeah, did your question get answered on what the threshold would be to establish signaling? Because what I feel like is there's been this huge community process, and the community process has led to an answer. And I could support this idea of bidirectional signalized flow, but it seems like it would be consistent with building option 2 if there's a process that we could subsequently go through. So do we understand what that process would be? Is there a feasible process to do that?
So I'm speaking based on my own, I'm not the city engineer, which is why I would encourage us not to engineer this from the dais, but from my own background in this field, the volume here, I don't think normally warrants a signal, and maybe the engineers can. So the volume has to be, I don't know at what level to warrant a traffic signal.
So can we just answer the question?
Sorry.
Can I just have somebody come up?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that there's an embedded assumption. Alternative 1 has a signal because of the bidirectional nature of the flow. It has to.
Good evening, Commissioners. Rafael Rios, Traffic Engineering Lead. Yes, there is typically a warrant analysis which evaluates the main street traffic versus the side street traffic. Without knowing the numbers off the top of my head, I don't know if the side street traffic would be high enough to warrant a signal. And also, I just would add, traffic signals are generally not supposed to be installed for traffic calming purposes. And in fact, they're usually not as good at traffic calming as an always stop sign. I know the example you used where they rest in red, that's currently happening over here at Waverly and Channing. And we have mixed results with that and a lot of resident complaints to remove it and such, but that's kind of anecdotal.
Would it be an option? So let's say we build 2. Would it be an option to go back and restripe for this bidirectional flow and add the signal? Would that be a feasible option downstream if we decided to do that?
If you had the 1 lane, the 2-way 1 lane, then
yeah, I'm just seeing if we can sort of bridge these comments into a way to move forward.
I think a 2-way 1 lane option would require a signal, probably meet other warrants or engineering judgment. That could.
Right, but what would that process look like? So let's say we build option 2. What would the process look like to then restripe and signalize per this option 1? Because what I don't want to do is get in the way of this bridge process, and I'd like to know if we can make this decision later.
Yeah, I think it'd be awesome. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it'd be great to just build it without stripes and decide in the process the directionality, because I don't think. I mean, I think that's an interesting question, but even then, I think the question is, what would be the process to rewind?
Sure. Well, option 2 has enough width for the bidirectional traffic simultaneously. In keeping that, as Commissioner Alchek suggested, then we would probably do a traffic signal warrant analysis, which looks at volumes and a bunch of other things also.
Yeah, you could do pretty generous Class 1 or Class 2 bikeways plus in 40 feet plus a one lane of traffic plus pedestrian, correct? 12 feet
Without doing the math
plus,
quickly in my head,
yeah,
I think you
12
could fit.
12 feet plus 20, basically 24. So you'd have more than enough space. Commissioner Olczyk.
Yeah, so just quickly, is that signal at Newell and Channing similar in its resting red?
I don't believe that one rests in red, but I could be wrong. I'm trying to, but I would.
I just have bad luck with it. No, I'm kidding.
You might be correct. I don't look at that one as quite as often, but I would say there's probably a lot more volumes if you add up Channing and Newell versus Newell.
I can appreciate that.
But yeah.
I think, look, let me say this to be clear to the fellow commissioners who may be preparing a motion. I won't stand in the way of making a recommendation here for Build 2. I don't share your enthusiasm for one-way traffic that's signal controlled. I think that the community's preference for two directions of traffic simultaneously represents feedback based on significant use. And I think that I'm not sure that they've ever, with my exposure to this project, I don't know if the community ever really seriously considered one-way traffic that was signal controlled. I think the debate largely centered on whether realignment provided significant benefits, and the challenges with realignment were actually so complex that I think we sort of turned our back on, the community sort of turned away from that option. So I think that I withdraw my suggestion that I can't recommend an unsignaled intersection here. I could. I understand what you were saying about sort of raising the road to meet the intersection, and you're essentially moving the stop sign, or the ideal design is that you'll move the stop sign to the end of the bridge, so you would essentially wait on the bridge. And from that position, when you look left, you do have an unobstructed view as a result of the new retaining walls and the raised roadway. I guess look, the biggest concern I have is with traffic calming, and if that can be mitigated in a way, even after the fact, if it's determined that this Build 2 alternative is not achieving the goal of creating enough safety, and the traffic calming mitigation options are available that are not signaling, and that we don't use signaling in the city typically for traffic calming, then I feel comfortable with that. Those responses are informative for me, and I appreciate them. And I guess my only other ask is that if we do have a if the commission does suggest or recommend this alternative one, which, although not new, feels like a new direction, I would request or recommend that the staff put together some sort of model, like animation that demonstrates how this would work, because I think this is a complicated execution. I can't think of a single other intersection in all of Palo Alto that operates this way. Maybe you're familiar with one. And I think that we would be remiss if we didn't figure out a way to at least help people understand what we were recommending, if that's actually the path we take.
Commissioner Templeton and then Commissioner Suma.
Briefly, I'm not sure about how well received a signal might be, given the housing that we can see in the vicinity. I know that's been a source of lengthy discussion in neighboring cities. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a caution. However, I would like to make a motion that the Planning and Transportation Commission recommend to City Council Alternative 2, and with strong encouragement to staff to include better, more current information about bike and pedestrian levels of service, if that's possible.
Is there a second?
I can second that. I wasn't going to add the additional bicycle information, but it certainly can't hurt. And I also want to point out, just so everybody knows, that the supplemental traffic report numbers the alternatives differently. So make sure they know it's, yeah, and I just for comment, I would not, I do think as a seconder that this is a very good compromise for a project that involves multiple cities and multiple agencies, and I want to see it go forward as soon as possible, and I in no way would find a signalized intersection to be preferable in this location. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or discussion? Commissioner Lawley.
Yeah, no, just briefly, from what we presented and what the work that's been done, there is going to be a little bit of collateral damage to this relative to, for example, what the gentleman raised here. But we are on somewhat of a timeline. We'd like to speed up this 9-year process. That said, with the comments that Chair Riggs made, if that's something that's substantive, the only option at this point, I think, would be to sort of simultaneously investigate that, which might also include not voting on this tonight, and that's got its downsides as well. So I think maybe, registering that other alternative should get another squint, but that we go ahead with alternative 2 might be the better path.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendations?
Can you repeat that?
Commissioner Templeton, would you make that one? Can you repeat your
Yes, I moved that the Planning and Transportation Commission recommend to City Council Alternative 2 with the caveat that if better bike and pedestrian level of service information is available, that it be included.
Is that clear? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 6-1. I did not vote for that. And in speaking to that, I think there are 3 reasons that I don't think it's, I haven't seen the information that fully justifies that as being the locally preferred alternative, particularly with regard to 3 points. I think the LOS gains are marginal based on the data I've seen. So I know this is important from a watershed standpoint, but I'm not sure that the artificial acceleration of the timeline justifies what could be a unique and more safe treatment from a multimodal travel standpoint. There's limited disadvantages from an automotive standpoint, but I think there's extreme disadvantages going from a Class 2 bike path to a Class 3 share the road situation and then back to a Class 2 bike path. That's a dangerous maneuver for cyclists, and this will invite conflict in this location. And then, in line with that, I think that this is not consistent with the transportation element, and particularly with regard to T6 and T1.19, it does not prefer multimodal. It does not prefer non-automotive transportation. So yes, I hear the rest of the commission saying that this is a unique treatment, but this is a unique intersection, and I don't think that a 2-way, bidirectional, 1-lane bridge that fully supported bicyclists and pedestrians would be inappropriate in this location. Moving on. I think we have approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the May 8th minutes? A long time back. Commissioner Sue moved. Second? Second. Commissioner Lowland, second. I'm not sure that we have any committee items unless you have any reports, Commissioner Suma, from Ventura.
No, because there haven't been any new meetings. They've been put off while staff is working on things.
All right, Commission, okay. Did I hear? So we have Commissioner questions, comments, announcements, free for all. Commissioner Wolfvogel. And I believe that the director would like to just kind of do a look forward as well. But go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I'm just curious if there's any sort of transmittal memo or assignment from council on the RPP project, timeline, scope. I believe that there was an assignment from council, and I'd just like to know what it is.
Yeah, and actually, the chair may have some more information. We had a conversation yesterday, and he had a follow-up with Chantel Gaines, who's filling in while we don't have a chief transportation official. Do you want to share on that point?
Yeah, so long story short is, yes, we've been asking for this stuff, and you, my commissioner, and I should thank Commissioner Suma, who while I was away helped me write a chair's memo to council. Thank you for the help that really asked for us to see some of these transportation items. So I thank you for that. I really appreciate that. We will be seeing some transportation items, and one of them, there's been some recommendations that they've been receiving on RPP, and so they're going to be, it sounds like August timeline, bringing some stuff to us, one of which may be some recommendations in terms of how we rethink RPP. Another, looking at holistic downtown parking, I think, which I think you're interested in, Commissioner Wolfvogel. Hearing a little bit more about the rail project, and I think there's been an additional committee established that will begin meeting starting next week regarding the rail project, and then I think that they're still doing a lot of policy stuff and prioritizing some of what they want to focus on strategically, so they're going to come and talk to us about that as well. Does that answer some of your question?
Partially, but I guess we'll get more in a rolling basis.
I don't think I have a specific timeline, because I mean, really the interim director is really just trying to catch up, and I think that we should definitely anticipate more as the year proceeds. Is that a good way to frame things, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, we're down, I think it's 25% of our workforce in that Office of Transportation, and we hear the council's direction, and we know very clearly that the Planning Commission is going to have a role in a future dialogue about RPP and half dozen other recommendations that were made as a part of the review and audit of that program. So there's, there's a lot of work that's coming forward, and we're just needing a little bit more patience from the commission to pull that together so we can have an informed discussion with you.
Great. I mean, my only request on that is that that be sequenced so that we have time to process it. I mean, I would hate for the staff processing to take 3 months, and the commission has 3 weeks to deal with the matter. So that's my request.
So, yeah. I mean, just so you're aware, what I asked the interim director to do is to bring us, what she had relayed to me was that there were at least 25 recommendations that they were grappling with from their consultant. And what I asked her to do is to bring those to us early, so that we could see them before there were decisions made on those, so that we had a role in the process. Any other questions from? I know I want to give the director a chance to give a look ahead, and particularly what I've asked him to do is roadmap some of the more complicated projects that are coming our way over the next few months. And but also give us an update on our meetings for the next couple meetings. And I know we have a little bit of a wrinkle with our meeting on the 26th. So while are you ready to go, Jonathan? Or I think there were, Commissioner Lowen, did you have a?
No, let's stay on agenda items. I just have something that's not related to
that.
Okay,
and Commissioner Suma, did you have? Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Well, so, yeah, we have, we were trying to get a parcel map scheduled for the Planning Commission for your June 26 meeting. Unfortunately, the details of that didn't come together in time for us to hold that hearing. So that item is being pulled off your June 26th meeting, which means we don't have anything scheduled for your next meeting on June 26th. I know the chair and vice chair have been talking about wanting to bring in another speaker, but I think that may carry over until we have our next meetings.
If you don't mind, let's belabor this a little bit, because I know there's been, my colleagues here, you all have some pent-up frustration about wanting to serve and wanting to hear things, and we don't have volume right now. So I had an informational item all slated to go on the 26th, but I don't want you to dedicate your night for a 15-minute item. And we literally, we neither have the staff nor the projects right now. If I can, I'll say it. I mean, Jonathan, we don't have domain over transportation right now, which is why I'm trying to reach out and get transportation things to come into our pipeline a little more regularly and often. Is that a good way to put it? Is that a fair? No.
There's interest to engage the commission more on transportation-related items, and we just need a little bit more time. And as far as the planning side of the equation, there's two ways that items get to the Planning Commission. One is through private development projects, which a lot of them actually don't go to the Planning Commission, and two is through policy initiatives that the council has directed us to work on, and in the course of preparing those projects, we engage the Planning Commission on our way to, at the outset of that project and on our way onto the City Council. And so we've just been really doing what we can to sustain our operations at this point, and we're hoping that in the latter part of this year, it's going to be, your agenda is going to be a little fuller with some policy initiatives that we want to bring forward, both in transportation and in planning, to, not just to fill your agenda, but to get the work done that needs to get done.
Can I just do a follow-up, as long as you don't have any sharp objects next to you that you're going to throw this direction? Because I always ask about the second half of the housing work plan that was also council assigned, and I know you've been working hard on the Palmer fix and some of the BMR stuff, which is, in my judgment, the crucial part about the housing situation here. So eager to get on that when you can get us started.
We've started that, actually.
I know.
Yeah, we started it last year, and then we put it on pause for a moment when we were drafting new regulations that related to the housing work program, where we changed the development potential on El Camino downtown and Cal Ave. So that's caused us to now have to go back and redo our pro forma analysis to find out at these new development standards, how does that affect our inclusionary housing requirements. So we ran and it had some draft information on one level, but now that the variables have changed, we need to go back and redo that. So we're in the process of doing that now with our consultant.
So that's not something you could slip into the next meeting?
Most certainly not.
I tried.
Okay, maybe we can do
It's
our...
not late enough. I might have tricked him if
maybe.
it was late enough.
All right, maybe we can do our commissioner. Let's hear what we do have for sure coming. Let's see, before I go on sabbatical.
So some of the items that we're working on, and one is the Palmer fix, and we're looking at the inclusionary housing. So we do hope to have that before the Planning Commission before the end of the year. That's one thing that we're addressing. Another is on the housing work program for 2019 is the TDR ordinance. These are looking at ways to increase the use of residential floor area and density through our TDR program. Right now, you can use TDRs for development downtown, but nobody's doing it because you get much more return on a square foot of TDR for office or commercial development than you would for residential. So we'll look at ways to see how we can incentivize that, and we'll have some conversations with the commission. We've previously talked to you about the EV chargers and how can we address that parking challenge that we have when somebody wants to upgrade their facilities. So we'll be coming back with an ordinance on that. BMR, TDRs. We have work that the council has given us recently with respect to wireless ordinance facilities, or wireless facilities and regulations. You're probably tracking the news on that. And so I think it was a month or so ago, the council gave us a year to come up with some standards. We're certainly doing what we can to come back in a sooner timeline. We certainly know the community is concerned about that, and we want to come up with some standards. So that's on our list as well. And so in addition to that, there's other things that we're doing that the commission doesn't see, including still having to respond to SB 35. We don't have our objective standards developed yet, and that's something that we still need to do. We're not anticipating an SB 35 project soon, but we may, and so we want to be prepared for that when it happens. And there's continuing to monitor the action that's taking place at the state level with respect to SB 50 and other legislation that we expect to be moving through that system in the early part of next year. So,
what about Castellea? Roadmap.
Yeah. So for Castellea, you have that's one of our pending development applications. I won't get into too much detail because you will be having hearings on it, but I believe we're targeting the first meeting in August, which is the 14th? Yes. And so that's going to be during the public comment period for the environmental impact report. So we do expect that you'll receive, that's going to be the only item on that agenda because we expect that there's going to be a lot of people who want to come speak to that. After that meeting, the public comment period will close and we'll begin a series of meetings that will include coming back to the Planning Commission for a review of the project, which won't be a part of your August 14th discussion. But later on in the next couple months after that, you'll have a hearing on the requested conditional use permit, the variance, the various discretionary entitlements. And then that will go on to the Architecture Review Board and then on to City Council probably in the early part of next year.
So when can we expect to get the EIR?
The EIR is going to be released, I believe, on about a month from now, July 12th. And it'll be a public comment period for, roughly, I think, 60 days. And so the commission will have a month to look at it before the meeting.
Can I just ask to follow up on that? I don't know when schools restart in August. Does anyone know offhand? That week? Okay, so are people back from vacations because schools are back? I just was concerned it's the 14th too early because people will be on the vacation and they won't be able to come and comment. Okay, so that's all right?
Yeah, I mean, just to pile on to that, I mean, I think that for something that's been in the works for a couple of years, it's a little awkward to drop an EIR with a 60-day comment period on July 12th, with July, August as the comment period. I mean, I just think from a public perspective, that's the optics of that timing are not very good.
Yeah, and I'd say that we're getting feedback along those lines for the past couple of months when we've been trying to release this. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any good date that is available for us to release this document.
September 1 is a really good date because people are paying attention September and October.
Okay. Well, that's a good time for us to have hearings then on the project.
Commissioner Suma. And then Commissioner Wolford, you have something else too? All right, okay. And,
Yeah, so do I.
Go ahead.
Okay, just one other topic, and this may be something that we could run as a study session. I mean, I'd asked about co-working. We've been carrying that as a possible item for a couple months. We may as well just cross those out because I don't think these items are ever going to come up. But we should probably run a study session on co-working and co-living and just understand what's going on in those realms. I mean, there's some projects going on in San Jose in co-living that are a big deal. We should understand the impact. We should understand there's some under-the-radar things going on in Palo Alto, I think, on co-living in R1 neighborhoods. I mean, there's just a bunch of things bubbling up that we should understand. I don't know that we need to take a position on them, but we should understand what's going on.
Sorry, well, we can talk offline, but maybe you can help facilitate that or arrange it. It sounds like it's something commission
this is classic to toss it right back.
Yeah. Okay. Was that something else? Anything else? And I'm looking at you, and you jogged my memory about one thing that I was hoping that we would see again before it's finalized. Coverly, are we going to see that again?
You know, I need to reacquaint myself with that. I know it went to council recently for a discussion. The EIR is going to be released. No.
I had some gray hair over that project when it came the first time. I would love to see it again.
Okay, so yeah, let me get back to you on that. I would anticipate there's another pass through the Planning Commission when the environmental document is prepared and the plan is being presented to council. So there's, you know.
Well, that's a little too late. I mean, to modify alternatives.
Oh, so I'm understanding you want to be involved in the framing of alternatives for the environmental document?
We've seen it once. And it's changed a lot. And I think before they do a bunch of spinning up on a preferred alternative, I mean, I, for one, from a design standpoint, thought that, okay, I don't want to get into my opinion, but I would like to have a chance to see before they march down the road of eliminating alternatives that this commission might feel is a little more attractive.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's true. So just a couple of points. This went to council last week or recently, and the council did give direction on what to plan for. So that's going to reflect the project scenario that will be discussed or analyzed in the environmental document. And again, I don't know what the level of environmental review is, right? It could be an M&D, in which case there's not alternatives that would be studied. If it's an EIR, then there would be. But some of that stuff still needs to be worked out. I mean, we just got the direction, and we're going to be responding. I mean, I say we, the city, but our community services department will be responding to that.
Well, I would just suggest that they've done so much public outreach, and it's supposed to be co-design, but they've come to us one time. I think it's fair for us to see it again before they look at alternatives in the EIR.
Yeah, so again, I don't know what the environmental analysis is ultimately going to be. It may or may not be an environmental impact report, but I'll certainly pass along the message.
Commissioner Sumo.
So, am I correct, this body is not meeting for 2 months now?
You have a meeting scheduled for June 26th, and and it's up to you if you want to cancel it. We don't have anything to present. There's no items scheduled for July, and the next meeting is August 14th.
Okay. So, to say the least, it's a little disappointing to have a 2 months hiatus in our work, but if staff really can't get things to us, I understand that.
So just to be clear, I know this is frustrating for the commission, and it's certainly a challenge on our side as well. There are no private development projects that have moved far enough along in the queue where we can present them to you. And in terms of the policy work that we're doing, again, we're just trying to keep the lights on and moving our operation, again, at 25% vacancies. We got positions that we're trying to hire. We're merging departments, becoming planning and building. I wish we had more to present to you. We don't, and we recognize that, and we're doing everything we can to get things as soon as we can.
Yeah, it was not a criticism of the planning department. It was just that I was just expressing sort of disappointment. With regards to the having expert visitors come, I think we need to look at a better process for that. You weren't here for the first one, but I did not find that it was very productive at all. So, and one of the things at our retreat we talked about was we didn't want it to be sort of a sales pitch, which I really felt that it was, and it's not as if we make those kinds of decisions here. So I think we should I think when one of us suggests expert to come, we should run it by the whole group and make sure it's something the majority of us really want to do. I just don't think I think it's a burden for you to have to decide that on your own, and I think it sort of eliminates the collaborative process that we have here. So that would be and it doesn't matter who it comes from, everybody should be able to comment on it. And then we can make a decision more collaboratively that way, I think. Do we have to make a motion?
I think your opinion is noted, and I did reference this, that I was bringing in a transportation expert before, and I will continue to suggest things, and I'll do that more vocally, but I don't think we're ever going to come to consensus on one individual. But I just heard Commissioner Walfogel to give a great idea, and I would totally support doing something on co-living and co-working, and I think that's something that, in terms of educating ourselves and our community, that's something we should do. And so if you have ideas as well, I'm just trying to start a process of educating ourselves in the community, and so we can have more dialogue, but I don't want to formalize a process of approving people.
Well, would any of my colleagues prefer to have a more collaborative process for approval of these? I mean, I don't know if I can make a motion on that or if anybody else is interested, but I brought it up before, and I don't think so far the lack of process has resulted in anything very useful for this body or the community, so.
I'll just say in response.
I think.
Oh,
sorry, Commissioner Lawing had his light on before you.
Oh, yeah, that was about something else, though. I was just.
Okay, Commissioner Alchek.
Yeah, look, I don't want to get into specifics. I would encourage you not to assume that the majority shares your opinion on this. I think, I mean, at least I can speak for myself. I felt very differently than you did about the speaker we had at our retreat and his role and effectiveness and contribution. And you took a very strong position about that and its appropriateness. I think you're taking a strong position about these.
I wasn't referring to the retreat. I was referring to
I know, I'm suggesting that the barometer that you have on the quote-unquote appropriateness of these guests is not necessarily shared by everyone, and I think you should maybe offline sort of test the water, because I think it would be a waste of time to put a motion together to suggest that the process by which I think, in particular, our chair has reached out to specialists in the industry to fill the void of time that we've had on this commission in an effort to create exposure to interesting things. I think it's premature to kibosh that. I think it's premature to criticize it. I think you should consider it as a work in progress and that it may continue to improve. And I think we have to be flexible as we attempt to expand our exposure. And I would encourage you not to put it to a motion, because I think that would be not successful.
Can I just add a comment to that?
Commissioner Lawing?
Yeah. So I think it could be helpful to just say, I'll bring up scooters. I want some sort of presentation on scooters, or Billy brings that up, and I'm going to support that. But if somebody says, yeah, that seems like it's overdone, or we could wait 3 months on that, I think that kind of input would be good. And of course, if we had 2 or 3 ideas, then we'd like to debate sort of the batting order of those. So I think that could be helpful. I don't think that eliminates the chair's prerogative to pick one of them.
It takes a lot of groundwork to coordinate these things.
Yeah.
I think you're under some false impression that there is a line of people outside that are interested in talking to us about scooters, and that there really isn't. And to give you an example, one of the individuals that I reached out with from an organization that deals with teacher housing was only available potentially to meet in like September, and I approached her in March. So it is actually rather difficult to set this up. And I think at the retreat, one of the things that we suggested was that if anybody was interested.
So I'm sorry for interrupting, Chair and Vice Chair. This isn't a part of the agenda where we can have this kind of a discussion. We're talking about future agenda items, and if we want to have a conversation about I mean, this is not even a part of the agenda where we make motions. We're talking about future agenda items.
It's all bundled into one sub-bullet here.
I'm about to conclude. I was just going to suggest that if you had an idea of something you liked, not a wink, but an idea, everyone is welcome to sort of invest the time and energy to make that a reality. I don't think the chair, based on the experience I had in helping coordinate a potential meeting, would turn anyone on this commission away from participating in helping design a learning session.
Yeah.
And I would encourage all of you to try to design one first before suggesting that it's more simple than it is.
Let's just kill this off, please. I will coordinate with people about what I'm dreaming up. I want to echo it is not easy. I have a lot of political capital on the line with these things, so I appreciate what Commissioner also said, but I'm going to have one more comment on this, and then the sentiment is understood, Mr. Commissioner Suma. Commissioner Templeton, and then if it's something else, Commissioner Lowing, then you.
Totally different.
Commissioner Templeton first, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Thank you. I wanted to suggest that a best practice in this area is to get feedback when trying something new. So if it's something that the chair is interested in, or vice chair, when rolling out a new program, is to seek feedback from people, how it went and what worked and what we might want to improve.
Thank you, appreciate that. Commissioner Lowing.
Yeah, I hope this is of interest. It'll be very quick. I'm going to pass this letter around, but we keep wondering if anybody's going to respond to any of our changes in zoning and so on. And I just got a letter in the mail from an enterprising contractor who is doing direct mail now to encourage people to put up ADUs, which I think is great. And it's just direct mail. In this case, he's kind of shaping it towards ADUs are becoming a major long-term housing investment for homeowners with family members who require home care. That's his marketing pitch. But I'm just glad that there's interest out there and contractors are coming after potential customers. So I'll just pass that around. And I presume sometime we'll get a ADU update by the end of the year or something like that.
We just did an information report. I can send that to you, to council, so I'll send that around to the commission.
Great.
All right, so I think that's it. But you were not, Mr. Director, you were not clear about the meeting, and but so we have no agenda items for our 26th. We do not have a meeting on June 26th. So just.
Yes, so I think the reasonable thing to do is to cancel it.
What?
If he cancels it, it's on him. If
Yeah.
you cancel it, it's on you.
I have formally, I will cancel it.
Duly noted.
I think I've already sent you an email to that effect. So it is, seeing no other lights on, it is 8 o'clock and we are adjourned.